New Year's Eve is supposed to be about celebration, fireworks, countdowns, fresh starts. But for some, it marks something much darker. This story follows four friends, Allie, James, Vanessa, and Chris, all in their late 20s, all hoping to ring in the new year with a weekend getaway. They rented an old cabin deep in the mountains of Vermont. No neighbors, no phone signal, and no distractions. Just snow, drinks, and time to reset. It started out perfect. A cozy fire, champagne, music echoing through the trees. But as midnight crept closer, strange things started happening. Quiet knocks at the door, even though no one was there. Cell phones glitching. Lights flickering, even when the generator was running fine. James laughed it off. Probably just the altitude messing with our heads. But Allie wasn't so sure. Earlier that day, she'd found something under the front porch, a rusted tin box filled with old photos and hand-scrawled notes. The last note read, "Do not stay past midnight. It wakes." They thought it was a prank, an old local legend. But at 12:01 a.m., when the clock rolled into the new year, the cabin went completely silent. The wind stopped. The fire died. And Chris was gone. No footsteps. No sound. Just his coat, still hanging on the rack, and a half-full glass of champagne. The front door was still locked. What they thought would be the start of a new year became a countdown for survival, because something in those woods doesn't care about time. It only cares about who's left behind. Stay with us, because what happened next shattered everything they thought they knew about the forest, the legend, and each other. This is one New Year's Eve horror story you won't forget. Allie's heart pounded as she checked the bedrooms, shouting Chris's name. No answer. Vanessa was pacing near the fireplace, clutching her phone. No signal. Still, he wouldn't just leave, Allie said. Not without a jacket, not in this cold. James grabbed a flashlight and opened the front door. Snow was falling gently, untouched. No footprints. Just a wide, white silence stretching into the dark trees. This doesn't make sense, he muttered. It's like he vanished. But then Vanessa spoke up, her voice shaky. The box. The note. You remember what it said? They'd all brushed it off earlier, figuring it was some weird leftover from the previous owner. A creepy joke. Now, it didn't feel like a joke at all. Allie pulled the box from under the porch again. Inside, the photos showed people standing in front of the same cabin. Couples. Groups. All from decades ago. None of them smiling. All of them staring directly at the camera, as if forced. The notes were worse. One said, "We thought we could outlast it." Another simply read, "Only 3 leave." James stepped back. Wait, are you saying this has happened before? Suddenly, a low hum filled the air. Faint, like static, or whispering, just below hearing level. The lights flickered again, and this time, the fireplace lit itself. The flame burned blue. Vanessa screamed and backed away as the photos in the tin curled and blackened, without any visible fire. James stared at the clock on the wall. It was ticking backward. Whatever had taken Chris wasn't done. Midnight had passed, but this New Year's Eve wasn't over. Because in this cabin, time didn't move forward. It circled. And the countdown had just started again. James stood frozen in front of the clock, watching the second hand tick backward in slow, deliberate circles. This is messed up, he whispered. We need to leave now. But when he tried to open the door again, it wouldn't budge. Deadbolt from the inside. The lock was jammed, like it had fused. Allie and Vanessa began tearing through the kitchen drawers for tools, anything to break it open. That's when Vanessa found it, an old journal tucked behind the spice rack, dusty and brittle but still legible. The name on the first page, Henry LaRoche, 1962. He'd stayed in the same cabin. As Vanessa flipped through the pages, the entries grew more frantic. There were 4 of us, she read aloud. On New Year's Eve, the 4th always disappears first. Then the rest turn on each other. The cabin feeds on fear. It traps you in the loop until only one is left. James stepped away from the door. This is insane. We're not going to fall apart like them. We're not. But Allie noticed something strange. Chris's glass of champagne had refilled. She looked around the room. Every glass was full again. The exact same way they were before midnight. We're back at the beginning, she whispered. Suddenly, a loud bang echoed through the cabin. It came from the attic. They hadn't even realized there was an attic. The trapdoor above the hallway was slightly open now, as if inviting someone up. James stared at it, his voice low. What if he's up there? Vanessa shook her head. Or what is up there? The blue flames flickered. The clock ticked louder. The rules of time were gone. The forest outside was no longer the threat. The cabin itself was the trap. And it had only just begun to play. The air in the cabin grew heavier, the walls closing in on them as if the house itself was holding its breath. The attic door creaked again, louder this time, its hinges groaning like something ancient was waking up. "Allie, stay back," James said, gripping her arm as she took a step toward the stairs. But Allie pulled away, her face pale. "I don't care what's up there. We're not staying here. We need to leave." She grabbed the door handle again, desperate, but it didn't budge. It was as if the cabin had locked them in, the walls pressing them deeper into the nightmare. Vanessa dropped the journal and knelt down, hands trembling as she glanced at the clock. The second hand still ticked backward, and now the minute hand had started, too. Time was running out, or was it running in? "Stop," Allie screamed, her voice raw with panic. "We need to focus. We're running out of time, literally." A sudden crash came from above, followed by the sound of something heavy being dragged across the floor. The attic was alive, and whatever was up there wanted them to come. James took a shaky breath. "We don't know what's in that attic, but I'm not sitting here waiting for it to come down on us." With no other choice, they moved toward the stairs, their footsteps loud in the unnatural silence. Every creak of the wood beneath them felt like an eternity. As they reached the attic door, the temperature dropped even further, frost creeping along the edges of the walls. James grabbed the handle. It was cold to the touch, colder than the snow outside. He pulled it open. There was nothing there. Just darkness. And then the whispers, voices, soft at first, then growing louder. They weren't coming from above. They were coming from inside the walls. The whispers grew louder, so loud that it felt like they were inside their heads, curling into their thoughts, turning their minds. Allie clutched James's arm, her breath shallow. I hear them. We're not alone." James was about to say something, but then Vanessa's voice cut through the noise, barely a whisper, as if she was speaking to herself. "The wall. Look at the wall." They turned, eyes locking on the wood paneling that lined the narrow hallway. It was old, but something about it seemed wrong. The faint outlines of hands appeared pressed against the wood from the other side. The whispers grew frantic. "Allie, don't," James shouted, but it was too late. She was already reaching for the wall. The moment her fingers touched the surface, the wood cracked, splitting open with a violent snap. Behind it, nothing. Just more darkness. But then, something shifted. A figure emerged from the dark, its face obscured by shadows but unmistakably human. Vanessa gasped. It's Chris." But the figure didn't move like Chris. It moved unnaturally, jerking and twitching like it was being controlled. Its eyes were wide, unblinking, fixed on them. The moment it took a step toward them, Allie stumbled back, her scream cutting through the stillness. And then it spoke, its voice cracked, hollow, like it was speaking from somewhere far away. "You're too late. It's already begun." James backed away, shaking his head. No, this isn't Chris. It's something else." The figure reached out, its fingers stretching unnaturally long. It wasn't just Chris they had lost. It was themselves. The wall shook violently as the cabin groaned. And in that instant, the door, the one they had been unable to open, flew off its hinges, revealing a scene beyond their worst nightmare. The forest outside was no longer outside. It had taken the cabin, and now it was pulling them in. The figure, Chris, or whatever it had become, stepped forward, its long fingers curling toward James. His heart raced as he backed into the corner, his mind scrambling for a way out. But the door they had tried to open earlier, the one locked so tightly, was now wide open. Outside, the forest had swallowed the cabin whole. The trees were pressed against the walls, their twisted branches reaching in like skeletal fingers. The world outside wasn't just dark, it was alive, pulsating, watching. James grabbed Allie and Vanessa, pulling them toward the open door. "We have to go now." But the figure spoke again, its voice even more hollow, echoing off the walls. "You cannot leave. You're already here." Allie screamed, her mind racing. "This is it. We're trapped. There's no escaping it." James grabbed a nearby axe from the fireplace. "If it's us or them, then we fight." They ran toward the door, but before they could step outside, the ground beneath them shifted. The forest wasn't just pressing against them, it was pulling them in. The door slammed shut with a force that sent them crashing to the floor. Everything went black. For a moment, they were suspended in nothingness. Then, slowly, their vision returned. They were back inside the cabin, but something was different. Time had stopped. Vanessa looked at the clock. The hands were still, frozen at midnight. "We're trapped in a loop," she whispered. "We'll never leave." But then, a voice, clear and calm, cut through the suffocating silence. "You're not trapped. You've been chosen." The figure, now standing in the center of the room, revealed its true form, a reflection of themselves, twisted and wrong, eyes hollow, mouths grinning like cracks in stone. The true horror was this: they had never left the cabin at all. The reflection of their twisted selves stood before them, grinning, moving in a way they could never imitate. Allie, James, and Vanessa were not just trapped in the cabin, they were part of the forest now. The forest that always took someone, that always left someone behind. It was always you, the figure whispered, its voice distorted, a mockery of their own. You were chosen the moment you crossed into these woods. Panic surged through James as he lunged at the figure, but it stepped back, fading into the walls as the cabin groaned once again. The shadow shifted, darkening as the walls seemed to close in. The floor beneath them trembled. Then it happened. Everything stopped. The lights flickered one last time, and as the clock struck 12, the whole room turned to ice. Time restarted with a violent jolt, sending them flying backward. They landed hard on the cold, unforgiving floor, but the cabin was silent. The figure was gone. When they stood, dazed and bruised, the forest outside had returned to normal, the trees quiet and unmoving. The cabin felt empty now, no longer alive with the presence of whatever haunted it. The door was open, and this time, there was nothing holding them back. Vanessa spoke first. "It's over, isn't it?" James nodded slowly, his mind still racing. "We're free." They stepped outside, leaving the cursed cabin behind. But as they walked toward the distant road, James felt a strange weight on his chest. He turned back, staring at the cabin one last time. It was still there, waiting. The forest wasn't done, and neither were they. Did you enjoy this creepy New Year's Eve horror story? Let us know in the comments below. What kinds of terrifying tales do you want to hear next? Haunted forests? Cabin horrors? Urban legends? Your thoughts help us bring more spine-chilling stories to life.